No one expected it to happen in daylight. No warnings, no escalation, no shadow war this time. Just an instant when calm turned into chaos. A radar screen lit up, a single spike on the scope, and in that fraction of a second, the crew of an American destroyer found themselves staring down the newest weapon in Iran's arsenal. It was supposed to be routine, a patrol, a presence mission, a message of deterrence. Instead, it became a test of survival, the narrow line between training and destruction. In the Strait of Hormuz, the most contested waters on Earth, the difference between victory and disaster was measured in seconds and in the steady hands of a few sailors who refused to panic. Strait of Hormuz, 1400 hours. Blinding heat over the water. The USS Gravely, Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, part of Carrier Strike Group Eisenhower, was conducting a forward security sweep ahead of the carrier's transit. Standard pattern, clear lanes, monitor traffic, track radar contacts, nothing unusual. Iranian patrol boats on the horizon, radio chatter in Farsi, small vessels weaving near the 12-mile line. The crew had done this dozens of times. The captain, Commander James North, calm, precise, checking every movement on the digital combat display. At 14:03, the ship's SPY-1 radar registered a faint emission spike from the Iranian coastline near Bandar Abbas. Single pulse, unknown frequency, then silence. Analysts marked it as possible radar calibration. But 10 seconds later, a second spike appeared. Narrow beam, high power, a lock-on. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard had spent years developing a new coastal missile system, C-94 RAD, a next-generation supersonic anti-ship weapon designed to bypass Aegis defenses through erratic flight paths and low radar cross-section. Intelligence briefings had warned about it for months, but no live launch had ever been recorded. Until now. At 14:04, the Bandar Abbas Command Center issued a coded signal across military channels. Lion 1, execute. 3 seconds later, infrared sensors on the Gravely detected a thermal bloom from the coast. Missile launch confirmed. Range 72 kilometers, bearing 036. Speed Mach 2.6. Time to impact 112 seconds. This was no drill. Vampire, 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 the Combat Information Center called out. The crew moved like a machine. Combat Systems Officer Lieutenant Commander Ruiz authorized immediate engagement. The Aegis Fire Control Network came alive. 4 tracking channels, 4 intercept solutions, all within seconds. SM-6 ready, came the call from the weapons control console. Weapons free, said North. At 14:05, Gravely launched 2 standard missile interceptors. White smoke erupted from the vertical launch cells. The destroyer's deck trembled as both missiles streaked upward, arcing high toward the incoming threat. Radar screens filled with data, range gates narrowing, target echo dancing across the screen like a heartbeat. Interceptor 1 guiding true, Interceptor 2 lock stable. But the Iranian missile wasn't following a predictable path. At 70 kilometers out, the RAD missile executed its first evasive maneuver, dropping altitude to 10 meters above sea level, disappearing into ground clutter. SPY-1 struggled to maintain lock as sea reflections flooded the array. Target lost, shouted a technician. North leaned over the console. Reacquire manually. Sweep sector 35 to 40. They caught it again, weak but solid. The missile was skimming the waves, unpredictable, fast. Interceptor 1 missed. The second missile adjusted, fusing mid-course. Explosion on radar. Negative hit. The target kept moving. At 14:06, Gravely launched 2 more interceptors. The Iranian missile closed to 50 kilometers. Electronic countermeasures activated. Chaff deployed. Rolling airframe missiles on standby. Every crew member at battle stations, eyes on instruments, ears on headsets. 90 seconds since detection. 40 seconds to impact. At 35 kilometers, the RAD missile began terminal phase, zigzagging at near Mach 3. Gravely's close-in defense systems locked on. The phalanx guns rotated, radar-driven barrels spinning. CIWS tracking, came the call. Engage at 5,000 meters. but the missile was still outpacing the computers. SM-2 interceptors launched in quick succession. First hit registered partial detonation, shrapnel cloud, radar echo fragmenting. Then another explosion, secondary intercept. The missile tumbled, nose down, still partially intact. "It's breaking up," Ruiz said. The warhead section detached, descending fast. At 14:07, 5 kilometers out, the Phalanx gun erupted. 20-millimeter rounds at 4,500 per minute, a wall of tungsten in the air. The remains of the Rad missile disintegrated 800 meters from the destroyer's bow. Debris splashed into the sea. Impact shockwave rippled across the surface. Silence followed. The bridge was filled with static and the smell of ozone. "Threat neutralized," said North, but the crew knew it had been too close. One failed intercept and the Gravely would have been gone. Debrief later showed the Iranian missile had penetrated every layer of defense except the final one. The radar team recovered the signal analysis, variable frequency seeker, low altitude profile, near zero radar signature. It was a weapon built to destroy ships like theirs. North turned to the operations officer. "We just survived the first live test of their new system." Then he paused. "Now it's our turn." Even before the debris hit the water, orders came from 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. Immediate counterstrike authorized. Objective: neutralize launch site and supporting assets. Confirm location of Iranian coastal battery. The coordinates were already known. Battery Lion 1, coastal ridge west of Bandar Abbas, disguised as civilian storage. Gravely's targeting data confirmed launch vector. Fire control, prepare Tomahawk package, 2 missiles, rapid sequence. At 14:09, 2 Tomahawk cruise missiles roared from the destroyer's vertical cells. Low altitude, sea-hugging trajectories. Flight time, 7 minutes. Simultaneously, the ship's radar picked up multiple surface contacts emerging from Iranian territorial waters. 4 fast attack craft moving at high speed, closing distance, cover ships, diversion. The Iranian plan wasn't finished. Contacts bearing 051, range 12 nautical miles, closing at 40 knots, reported the tactical officer. Weapons free, prioritize closest threats. The Gravely's deck gun swiveled, a 76mm shell chambered. At 14:10, the first Iranian vessel opened fire. Machine guns stitching the water near the bow. Return fire! One burst from the destroyer's forward cannon tore the lead boat apart. Secondary explosion, fuel fire. The others kept coming. Engage with 5-inch gun, engage with CIWS if within range. 2 more boats destroyed within 30 seconds. The last one turned, smoke trailing, retreating toward the coast. It didn't make it. A rolling airframe missile intercepted it mid-turn. No survivors. North didn't look away. Continue tracking. Confirm Tomahawk impact. At 14:16, the radar feed from 5th Fleet reconnaissance drones showed the Tomahawk striking the Lion 1 site. Both missiles hit within 2 seconds of each other. The launchers vaporized. Ammunition vehicles burned. Secondary explosions lit the ridge. Intelligence later confirmed the destruction of 2 Rod launchers, 1 command shelter, and several radar trucks. Estimated Iranian casualties, 37. The coastal battery ceased all transmissions. The Iranian Navy's local command tried to jam satellite feeds, but it was too late. The entire exchange, missile launch, intercept, retaliation, had lasted 13 minutes. 1 destroyer, 4 intercepts, 2 Tomahawks, 4 enemy vessels neutralized. But the implications were far greater than a single skirmish. 5th Fleet analysts called it the most significant naval engagement in the Gulf since Operation Iron Shield. Not for its scale, but for what it revealed. Iran had operationally tested a new class of supersonic missile against an American warship, and it had failed. The U.S. defense network had been stretched to its limits, but it had held. The lesson was immediate. No system is perfect, but discipline and training can close the margin between survival and loss. Inside the Combat Information Center, the crew of the Gravely were silent. The adrenaline crash hit all at once. 90 sailors had just experienced live combat for the first time. North walked through the compartment, eyes meeting each of theirs. "You did your job. That's why we're still here." At 1500 hours, the destroyer resumed escort position. The Strait of Hormuz looked the same. Flat water, heat haze, cargo tankers in the distance. But every radar contact now carried weight. Each echo could mean the next strike, the next test. Intelligence intercepts later revealed the Iranian command's intent to provoke a limited confrontation, gather data on U.S. missile defenses, and showcase domestic weapons capability for propaganda. They got none of that. Instead, they lost a battery, 4 boats, and the illusion of surprise. Within hours, satellite images confirmed smoke columns still rising from the coast. International monitors recorded spikes in Iranian military communications, defensive postures shifting inland, air defense radars shutting down. The U.S. presence in the Strait only intensified. By nightfall, the Eisenhower strike group completed transit into the Gulf. The Gravely sailed astern, minor radar recalibrations underway, hull unscathed. Crew fatigue was heavy, but morale solid. In the command center, North drafted his after-action report. Enemy employed advanced supersonic missile against U.S. destroyer. Multiple intercepts required. Threat neutralized with 0 casualties. Immediate counterstrike eliminated launch site and hostile naval elements. Engagement demonstrates evolving threat environment and continuing necessity of layered defense readiness. He paused, then added one line. Missile failed. Crew did not. The next morning, Iranian state media issued a statement. Revolutionary Guard forces conducted successful deterrence test in the Strait of Hormuz, forcing American warship to withdraw from operational area. Satellite images showed otherwise. Gravely had not withdrawn. It had stayed on station for another 12 hours. Allied reconnaissance confirmed the destruction of the Rad launch site. Western intelligence agencies released infrared footage of the Tomahawk strike. The world saw the truth. Iran's newest missile had failed on its first combat launch, and its launch battery no longer existed. Markets reacted instantly. Oil futures jumped 4%, then stabilized once reports confirmed the Strait remained open. The Pentagon's briefing was concise. An Iranian missile was launched at an American destroyer operating in international waters. The missile was intercepted and destroyed. The U.S. responded by neutralizing the source of the attack. There were no Allied casualties. Diplomatic channels lit up, but neither side escalated further. Both knew what had happened. Iran had gambled on a symbolic strike. Instead, it exposed its newest weapon system to global scrutiny and lost operational credibility overnight. For the sailors aboard the Gravely, the event became part of the logbook. One more line in a long record of deterrence missions. Yet among them, there was a silent understanding. That day, every layer of defense had been tested, and every crew member had proven capable. No celebration, no speeches. Just the quiet hum of engines and the steady line of the horizon. War in the Gulf never ends with noise. It ends with silence, the kind that follows after danger passes but never fully disappears. In military archives, the engagement would be labeled Incident at Hormuz, July Engagement. 13 minutes of combat, 3 intercept sequences, 2 counterstrikes. Tactical victory, strategic warning. Iran had fired its most advanced missile. The U.S. destroyer had survived. The Strait remained open. And on that narrow stretch of water, where 20% of the world's oil passes each day, the lesson was once again absolute. The first to fire may start the battle, but the one that endures decides its meaning.